the U.S. brought down tariffs on all EU goods to 10%, at least for the next 90 days. Some European wine producers say orders are now pouring in an effort to catch this window. But a French trade body is calling it half good news. Any tariff increase will raise prices. These 10 nations fill America's wine glasses, and the taxes they may eventually have to pay at the border. Italy dominates the market by volume, but faces a sobering 20% tax hit after this 90-day grace period, unless things change once again. New Zealand and Australian vineyards pour in right behind France. Chile and Argentina sit comfortably midway in the U.S. wine cellars. And while South Africa has about 10 in its export volume, it faces the stiffest possible tariffs of 31%. Okay, we know the numbers. Let's talk about the fallout. With us now to talk more about all of this and the impact on both exporters and wine producers, Peter Andrew. He's the founder and president of the Culture Wine Company, specializing in just that. Thanks for coming in. We certainly appreciate it, and I love your backdrop there. It looks very nice.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk a bit about, people may have noticed going into their wine stores over the past week or so that perhaps there is some big surge shopping going on right now. Do you think that's happening? People trying to get in ahead of the tariffs?
I think to a limited extent, yes, but I think once importers start to display price increases and distributors start to display their price increases, I think retailers will start to send a message to their consumers that it's time to stock up. Yeah. So I think we're pretty close to that happening.
Okay, will we see the change slowly? Because one thing I did read about all this, or at least told, that the companies often get their wine shipments every month or month and a half or so. So how could that weigh in on all this?
Yeah, exactly. The supply chain moves a little slowly. It takes time for bottles to be labeled and prepared for export, and then obviously the ocean transit and sometimes internation trucking. So for me with South Africa, it can take me about 2 months from placing an order to receiving it in my warehouse. So I suspect the wine industry will start to really feel the impacts of these tariffs in the next 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, I want to talk about South Africa a little more in depth in just a second, but let's talk about who are the big losers here? The customers, the producers? I mean, it just seems like it's a target-rich environment for people kind of taking it on the chin right now.
Yeah, I think everyone is a loser in this scenario. The majority of farmers, grape farmers, vineyard farmers around the world have very small land holdings. And so that doesn't matter where the wine is coming from. There are small farmers that are going to be hurt by this. That means there are a lot of small winemakers that are also producing little quantities of wine. They'll be impacted by this. Importers like myself will be impacted, and then that goes all the way downstream to consumers. There's not a single layer from grape growing to production to consumption that won't be impacted by this.
I think you hit the nail on the head talking about the wine growers, because people do tend to gravitate toward what they enjoy, and wines that come from certain geographical locations. And you can't change that. So are people going to be willing to pay an extra 20, perhaps 30% to buy their favorite wine?
Time will tell. I think what will probably happen is they will drink less wine and purchase less wine than they were before. And sadly, the wine consuming market around the world has been in decline for the last year to 2 years. And so if you add in increased prices in the mix of this, it's just a bad formula for the industry overall.
Yeah, that's tough. Let's talk about Europe and then South Africa. How are these regions bracing for the hike? We heard one European winemaker say, look, if the U.S. doesn't want to buy our wine, fine, drink what you grow in Napa Valley. We'll try to find other markets. But is that possible?
No, I mean, I think that the key thing with wine is that it's not a replaceable product. I think when you think about like the Austrian winemaker who grows a Gruner Veltliner, yeah, that may grow in California, but the flavor profile is completely unique in Austria. And so in Europe, I think what they're doing is finding new markets. And I think this is a broader issue with the tariff war overall, is anytime you're forced into making decisions with your business, then you don't want to pivot back to that if tariffs get changed or lifted. So I think what I'm hearing now is a lot of producers in Europe are looking at Canada, they're looking at Latin America as new markets to be able to shift some of their wines to ensure that they have stability in their business models.
What about South Africa? 31%. Why is it being hit so hard?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a geopolitical thing. It definitely caught me by surprise. All the news was promoting a 200% tariff on Europe, which was terrifying in every way. And so when the news came through that South Africa was actually the highest hit nation in the world of wine producing nations for tariffs, it was quite a shock.
Okay, let's talk about also the volatility, the dramatic changes, the swings that come with Trump's mood swings, or at least his decisions to threaten massive tariffs, then put them on hold. What does that do? Because as you said, it was simply terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing here is that this kind of whiplash effect and this off again, on again type of policy doesn't help businesses. I think the key thing in this tariff environment is that there's a lot of uncertainty, and the worst thing you could have as a business owner is uncertainty, because you can't make important and responsible decisions when you're basically throwing darts at a board, which is what this policy seems to be to begin with. So it's just hard to be able to know the best path forward when you're seeing changes almost on a daily basis.
Okay, Peter, say that you're a business news anchor and you've had a long week of dealing with the ups and downs of tariffs. What would you recommend somebody unwind with at the end of the day?
Well, I think South African Chenin Blanc would be the ideal scenario for me. I mean, there's more of it grown in South Africa than anywhere in the world. And so it's a quite diverse and interesting variety that grows in every climate and terroir in the country. So I think it's a refreshing, crisp, very mineral driven wine.
Excellent. Peter Andrews, thank you so much for your insight. Good luck to you as well.
Thank you.